Good day, good day. Thanks for joining me on this morning. I feel like I'm having some technical issues today, so apologize. But thanks for being here and welcome. Welcome to the Kingdom Wealth Warriors podcast. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, I am here doing a purposeful pour, and I am excited about this week and what we're going to be discussing. All right. So we're going to start a series actually today uh, on the impact of social media. And I think it's important because a lot is going on. And probably not just in social media, but just in media in general. And I thought it would be a good time for us to really take a close look at that. In case I didn't introduce myself, I'm Deb Howard, your abundant life coach. And I want you to live your most abundant life all the time even though this is about we talk about wealth and how to really have the mindset for wealth. It's also very important for us to manage our health, right? And our mental health and our physical, emotional health. All those things are important. And it can impact our even our ability to generate and maintain wealth. And so that's why we talk about these subjects because it is important. And if you don't, or if you aren't able to effectively manage these areas, then you will find yourself having issues when it comes to wealth. So, definitely social media, our excessive use of social media. Let me put it that way. The excessive use of social media can lead to increased anxiety, stress, and ultimately, it could impact our ability to think creatively. Now, all you entrepreneurs know out there, really all of you know, that it's so important for us to be able to use what? Our brain, right? We need to be able to think creatively. We need to make sure that we are using the sources or the tools that God has given us internally, because that's where wealth comes. It comes from inside, believe it or not. And so if we are managing, or if we aren't managing the stimuli that we get, it really could impact us in a way that is more crucial to our wealth than we think. Okay, so first let's set the stage. As you know, many of us rely on social media to stay informed. Y'all, I'm getting hot in here. All right. um, we use social media to stay informed. We use social media to connect with friends, to share personal experiences. But in these past years, especially through the COVID pandemic, you remember the COVID pandemic, right? Uh, I know you do. We're still dealing with aspects of COVID. So, especially through that pandemic, I think social media really became a primary source of news and updates. And while that might have helped us, stay connected and stay aware of what was going on, it also contributed to heighten um, anxiety and stress. And you probably felt this yourself. I know I did, right? I know because listen, throughout COVID, especially that first year, 2020, when we was on lockdown and all of that, I probably watched more news that year than I have in my entire life. I was in front of the TV all the time, and we were working from home too, and so the TV was on always in the background, and usually I had it on the news because we were all consumed, or many of us, I won't say all of us, but many of us were consumed with what was going on with COVID. So one study in particular caught my attention that was published in 2020. It actually examined the psychological effects of all the news and social media about COVID and found that excessive exposure did lead to increased anxiety and stress among individuals. In other words, the more we scroll and the more we consume, the more we might feel anxious. And so I think that's still an issue for us because we are on a 24-hour news cycle and the same story is constantly being replayed, whether it's on social media, along with everyone's opinion about those headlines and things that are occurring in the news or wherever we listen. Every conversation typically is about social media. So why does this matter? because social media isn't just about staying informed. It's also tied to our creativity, right? We talked about earlier, or I mentioned earlier to you about the stimuli that we receive on a regular basis. When we're anxious or stressed, we tend to operate, and some of you may have heard this term before, in fight or flight mode. That leaves less mental space, right, for imaginative thinking or innovative problem solving. Think about it, it's hard to be creating when your mind is worried about all the things that we're constantly worried about. In my experience, and I'm sure many of you can relate, when you open your phone, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, whenever you open your phone and start scrolling through the barrage of stressful news, your anxiety can spike. I've noticed that about myself for sure. And if you try to create something, be it writing your book or writing in your journal, designing, or even brainstorming, it becomes more challenging because you need to tap into that creative flow. And instead of the creativity, we're tapping into anxiety and stress. And that acts like almost a roadblock, keeping us from getting to the place in our mind that we need to get to. Along with all the other stressors in our life, family and friends and work and whatever else you're dealing with, the constant barrage of scrolling and hearing all these headlines, hearing over and over again, people give their opinion about it. And of course, and we'll talk about that later this week, the escalated tension of every headline. So how exactly do these factors build up? It's usually just that constant vigilance that social media encourages. You know, some of the vigilance that we're experiencing is good, but some of it isn't. Y'all, we are getting consumed about everything. And I can say that because I used to not think I was much of a social media person. Uh, Last couple of years, I've definitely indulged more, and I've really found myself sometimes feeling that anxiety, just listening over and over to the critical nature of everything, every headline, everything. And yeah, it's a lot. And so I think we have to understand that. We want to stay updated. I know. So we keep checking. Right? We keep hearing those notifications ring on our phone. We keep reading comments. Sometimes comments are the best part. And we're following those trends. And over time, what happens is that and maybe unknowingly, a cycle of dependence occurs, right? And we feel like I've got to check because I don't want to miss out. Fear of missing out. Does that sound familiar? So we don't want to miss out on anything. Many times the conversations in our social circles now are about what's on social media. Heck, even the news is talking about what's on social media. I don't watch the news that much, but I'm always surprised at how many of their stories come from TikTok or Instagram. So unfortunately, this elevated level of alertness that we have, because we don't want to miss out, we want to stay in the conversations, we want to know what's going on, it can actually lead to hyper arousal. The feeling that we always have to be on, which triggers stress hormones like cortisol. Over prolonged periods rather, this stress can really erode our mental health, hamper our calmness, right? Hamper us from being calm and eat away at that essential creative spark. That is why we have to talk about this. Because for many of us, our wealth is in our creativity. For many of us, even some of the things that we do at our jobs, if we still have a job, our ability to perform is linked to that place of creativity. So I really want us to get back in touch with who we are. We are creative beings. We are creative being and we are creative beings. And I hear many times, and I'm guilty, people saying that I'm not creative. I actually don't think that's true. I actually think that what we're dealing with is a lot of stimuli that keeps our brain swirling in all the things that's going on. So Now that we've talked about that, what do we do about it? Well, one thing we can do, and we're going to talk about this more this week, is limit screen time. Listen, I know it's hard. I mean, and this is true, I see people when I'm driving sometimes at red lights checking their phone. I want you to think about limiting your screen time. Set boundaries. And yes, I'm using that boundaries word because I think it's important in this case. We need to set some boundaries around what we are constantly allowing to infiltrate our brains. Whether it's dancing cats or real news, it doesn't matter. We need to think about, right? I'm just suggesting this, that you limit your screen time. Set some boundaries. Think about when you really want to allocate time for that, right? Maybe it's 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the afternoon. I don't know. Maybe it's 2 hours in the morning and 5 hours in the afternoon, whatever you decide. But I think you need to think about, I think we all do. We all need to think about, how do I manage this good thing so that it doesn't become a bad thing in my life? I don't think social media is bad. I don't. But I do think that we are dealing with some of these challenges, that overexposure. And I think it is hampering us in ways that we don't even realize. So think about limiting your screen time, that mindless scrolling sometimes. And I'm going to say this, I do think that sometimes our mindless scrolling really is a tool that we use to escape. A mechanism, right? An escape tool so that we don't have to either deal with what we're dealing with or really have to sit down and deal with ourselves. So I want you to think about that. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying that I want you to think about that, especially if you spend and be honest with yourself, right? Especially if you're spending a lot of time doing that. All right. I want you to curate your feed. Now, I do this all the time. And when I say curate your feed, I mean unfollow or mute some accounts that frequently post content that get you anxious. Listen, y'all, I'm going to be honest. During the November 2024 election last year, some of y'all probably don't know, I muted a whole bunch of folks, right? Didn't unfollow because I liked their content most of the time. But people were very passionate, one way or the other, about their candidate, regardless of who that candidate is. And yes, I have friends on both sides. And so it was very important for me to maintain my own mental health, that I not continue to see this barrage of opinions about each other's candidates, right? One thing I've noticed here in America is that it's okay to be passionate about your candidate now. I think the difference that I've seen in recent years is that people don't really give a reason why they like their candidate. It's more about they like this candidate and they give reasons why the other candidate is horrible. And I think that just, all of that negativity, that's how I want to put it. That constant barrage of negativity is really what got to me. So it's not election season, but there may be people, right? There may be accounts, pages that you're thinking, oh my God, every time I see a post from this person, it just, irks me or just gets on my nerve. Unfollow them, right? It's okay. Mute them. Now, I said mute. I don't know about all the social media channels because I just know Facebook. And I know on Facebook, you can mute them for 30 days, right? I don't want to see anything. Click the 3 dots at the post and you can just mute them. And that's what I did. Because after election season, for the most part, both sides were a little calmer. So I want you to think about that even on a regular basis. You have control. Fill your feed with things that you want to see. And then rather than mindlessly scrolling through your social media accounts, right? Actively choose what it is that you want to look at. If you're researching a topic or if you're interested in a particular thing, then look for that and then step away. Child, get what you came to get and move on. That again is about setting boundaries. And then the last suggestion I have for you is just a digital detox. Take a break, right? Whether it's a day, whether it's a few hours, half a day, right? Depending on your usage, You determine. Do I need to just, clear my brain a bit, right, from all of the information that I'm getting on a constant basis? Like I said, social media, in my opinion, it's not bad, right? I think it's a good thing. I think it's helped us in a lot of areas. I think it's solved a lot of problems. But then I think that we, just like anything, we solve one problem, but we add a couple of more. And I think this is an area that we can all manage a little better, just a little bit, not be excessive and not do that, just that thoughtless scrolling, right? I know it's easy to do to occupy time, whether you're at the doctor's office, maybe you're waiting on the kids. Listen, I know there are 100 reasons and 100 times to check social media and see what's going on. But I want you to know that you can manage your consumption. You can guard what comes into your mind, your spirit, your body, right? You can manage all of that. And so one way to do that is to really be thoughtful and intentional about what it is and why it is you're doing it on social media. Okay, that's enough for today. Look, thanks for tuning in to this episode today, y'all. I'm excited about what God is doing. I'm excited about, even what's going forward in this community. So I want you to stick with me. And listen, in our next episode, we're going to continue this discussion, like I said, but we're going to go deeper into it and really look at how social media can maybe even impact our self-esteem. Listen, we've got to deal with these areas, but before we can deal with them, we have to be aware, right? We have to be aware. So I hope you'll join me on Wednesday around this time, 6:05 a.m., so that we can continue our discussion. Until then, be mindful of your scrolling. That's number one. Take breaks when you need them, number two, and prioritize your well-being. All right, I'm Deb Howard. I am getting out of here because I feel like I've been talking for a while. So you know what I'm going to say? Go have your most abundant day. I'll see you in the next episode.